that's good the way to do it.
Yeah, they're going to be done by some. All right, we'll call this council meeting to order. First item would be adoption of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Motion's carried. One delegation this evening, Derek Jensen here on the rezoning application and development variance permit and development permit for 1651 McDonald Road. Welcome, Derek, and if you'd like to come to the podium, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present this brief introduction to the final phase of the Lancaster Heights development. The various applications submitted for your consideration enables the existing Lancaster Heights land use principles to be extended to the current phase. These principles include single-family residential lots and 3 single-family strata homes with a density of approximately 1 residence per 850 square meters. The lot size generally ranges from 500 to 650 square meters, and all homes will be architecturally controlled per previous phases, and pedestrian connectivity to existing walking routes is provided. And lastly, the interfaces with the existing residents are buffered by either fencing, cedar hedges, or both. The developer has met approximately 80 existing property owners on Avro Drive, Tudor Drive, turning into Spitfire. Generally speaking, the comments and the reception with respect to the proposed development were generally favorable. Special attention by the developer was provided to the owners of lots 37 through 40 as they are immediately adjacent to this, what's proposed to be a CD zone development. In concert and in consultation with those folks, their preference was for single-family orientated buildings, that being single-story building structures fronting this north property line with potentially 2 stories fronting the back, but maintain the single-family type of architecture and structure. With respect to the land use and variance applications, the owner has agreed to all current town development and social initiatives, including affordable housing contributions, groundwater recharge where applicable, the Build Green BC, adaptable housing provisions, as well as the retention of mature tree cover. Anything else? Special assistance. You just tripled the population. With respect to servicing, this last phase was certainly considered and capacity allocated within prior development phases. With respect to stormwater, the stormwater pond would be used again to attenuate stormwater flows. The sanitary pump station located adjacent to the pond would be used to connect to the municipal system, and water service was provided by service at the end of constructed Spitfire Drive. The developer has worked with Marvin and Regina extensively, as well as myself, to develop a bit of an alternate road cross-section here. Both myself and the developer believe that reducing the road width, increasing the sidewalk width, while also limiting on-street parking is going to enhance the character of the development and certainly support this recent initiative by town staff. I'll kind of defer the logistics and the rationale for this alternate road cross-section to Marvin as part of his presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to present this today, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions from members of council at this time? Yes.
I have a couple of questions, and questions of staff I should wait till later.
There will be a presentation by our planner,
Yeah, and I certainly appreciated reading that you were going to preserve as many trees as possible, and there were some very nice trees in there. I just wondered how you were going to make sure they were retained once the properties are subdivided, as you may be aware, our current tree protection bylaw really only protects it at this stage. And once the properties are subdivided,
Right.
generally what happens is that most of the trees come down, or they're located in such a way that the lots
Right.
don't fit.
So a couple of areas of note is, the first is this proposed to be park dedication triangle here. We have, just by the by, we have surveyed the location of all the trees greater than 8 inches on site. We have made that information available to staff. There's an existing grove of significant trees in here which would remain. There's another significant grove of both fir trees and fruit trees within the rear yards of 1718 and in this park dedication here. The balance of the tree removal would be limited to this road rights-of-way to facilitate servicing, and then obviously the building envelopes to facilitate residential construction. We have worked with Marvin in the past to develop covenants on title with respect to locating trees generally on lots that have trees of significance, let's call it. We have worked out on Butcher's Road, for example. We worked with Al Fraser to evaluate the trees, and Al noted some specific trees of unprecedented quality and significance that we actually developed legal covenant plans, and those were registered on title for their protection.
And that's what you're proposing?
We would work with town staff and both Marvin as well as Al. We do plan as this development progresses through the approvals process to do a site review with Al so he can do a bit of an evaluation of the inventory and identify those trees that maybe are unique in some way and or of significance.
Great, and I know there's been mention of a hedge along, because it affects the Comox band land.
Yes.
And they have requested...
That's right. So Comox band land interfaces along this property line here, consistent with what we did in Phase 4, or to supplement what we did in Phase 4, which is a 5-foot-high black chain link fence. There is a request into the Public Works Department. Essentially, because of the topography, there needs to be some infrastructure along this rear property line to support servicing these lots. What we're hoping to be able to do is to supplement this 5-foot-high chain link fence with a cedar, a 6-foot-high cedar hedging as well, and that would be inclusive all along this interface with the reserve, as well as be in the interface between these properties and your walkway here, and then whatever areas within this park dedication are the existing vegetation doesn't provide reasonable screening and buffer between the existing residents and the new development, that would be supplemented with hedges as well, and that also a fence and hedge would be installed to interface between the CE zone and those properties just to the north. So consistent with what we have done in the past through the phases, wherein we've got the new phase abutting the existing residents either on Knoll or Bolt or whatever. That was kind of the protocol, 6-foot irrigated cedar hedge complete with fencing.
Oh, great. So that was my question too, is how you're hoping to maintain it. So
It would be irrigated until such time as the lot was sold, the house was built, and the landscaping of the homeowner was able to take over.
And would there be a requirement that the homeowners, took that on? That stratas we require?
It would certainly be encouraged. To date, we haven't, encumbered the title by requiring a covenant on title to say that those cedar trees must be, irrigated and, per landscape practices and such that they would be, left in a healthy state. Past experience dictates that if they're healthy when people move in, so to speak, then they will take ownership of that vegetation and see it through.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to hear the amount of consultation that you've done in the neighbourhood, because so there's no surprises to the people living there. that
No,
this is-
as I say, we kind of, Avro Arrow takes a turn here. We kind of went, halfway up Avro Arrow here. We went up Spitfire, halfway up, and then went around Tudor Drive to where it meets up with Spitfire. So, certainly within the immediate proximal area, those residents on both sides of the road have been at least notified and presented with what the development plan is.
Great, thank you, and it's great the narrower road, that certainly makes a lot of sense.
All right,
Great, thanks.
anything further? Thank you for your presentation. Anything further to add, Mr. Long? Entourage?
Can I speak for a moment there? I'm sorry I was late. Not as fast as I used to be when kids were small. I'm not sure if Derek spoke on approaching the neighborhood. I have spoken to everybody that's adjacent to the development. We've had two parties, one violently opposed if anything happened to the property. The other one just doesn't want to see any trees come down. But the general feeling is keep as many trees if we can. And the people that are directly behind the triangle section out in this area here, they've asked that we don't extend the height of the buildings too high, and we're limited to basically single story with a roof in that area. Everything else is moved far enough away from it that you're going to overlook it anyhow, because the property does fall off quite quickly. On the tree retention, there is a couple of quite nice groves of trees in there. I think Marvin and Regina are working with trying to get more protection of the trees that are directly behind this parkway. We've spoke on it in the past, the ones that are on the property there, but in there's not what I call a significant amount of trees there, but there's some number of mature trees in that area. And Derek did speak on the hedging adjacent to the reserve band, and we may have to widen that easement in that area to accommodate the hedging in that area so that they're not over top of the piping itself. I'm not opposed to tree retention bylaws. We know that we have to stay outside the building envelopes with them, simply because they can be very easily overturned if we don't. There's a limit of power restricted if we can be on things. But generally speaking, if we clear the necessary ones at the time of development, we find that we manage to save a lot more of the trees. If we don't, the builders come in and they take every last tree off the property. It's their first thing they do. And we do work in our building scheme, and I mainly sell to builders. I don't sell to very many individuals, but I work directly with the builders. And it gives me some opportunity to put some ideas of what I like and don't like to happen with things like trees and landscaping and stuff like that. So it does give me a second shot at it. That's about all I have.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on with the next section of the meeting. It's for approval of the council meeting minutes of August 15th. Move. Second. On approval then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Manager report, page 7. It's here for receipts.
Second.
Receipts then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We do hope to have that grant application submitted over the next couple of weeks for UBCM, and we have the Minister of Aboriginal Relations, who is as of today, and Ida will be that. bylaws, and we have for adoption, page 9, Exhibit Homes Sanitary Sewer Lift Station bylaw.
Move adoption. Second.
Adoption, and all those in favor? All right, now we'll turn it over to our planner for the presentation on the development application which Mr. Jensen and Mr. Long speak to. Our planner will have a presentation, PowerPoint, to illustrate staff report and issues arising therefrom. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Zoning application 1010, DP application 2014. The presentation that I have before you today is broken up into 4 parts. So the first part being an application summary of the general context. A review of the property in regards to the OCD sustainability initiatives, which are quite numerous, so how they affect this property. Neighborhood compatibility, analysis of that, which is probably one of the primary site-specific issues on this property, and then also the low volume residential road cross-section that we'd like to implement through a development variance permit as a pilot project, and see if that addresses some of the problems that we're getting on residential streets in terms of people's perceptions on speed, noise, and safety. Each of these in turn. First, subject property. Subject property is on the southwest corner of the town boundaries. So, truncate this a little bit. So here's the Dog Road. First Nations Reserve 1 is in this area. Avro Arrow, Spitfire, and then Tudor Drive. And Tudor will connect eventually to Knoll. And here's an old section of road that's listed. This is closed road dedication. We have a linear park coming down in here, detention pond, and a service road coming to our pump station in this area. The OCP designation for the subject property is residential ground-oriented infill. That allows for a range of uses. It includes single family, sets a general floor of 350 square meters, no parcel size, secondary suites, consideration of coach houses, duplexes, triplexes, and on large parcels, patios, all under that designation. The current zone is R3.3, single family, secondary suite, so it's a large lot zoning, so he has to rezone in order to have any subdivision potential. And the proposal is for the 26 lots and 1 building strata lot and park dedication. So the rezoning, so there's actually 3 different zones that's being proposed. We have Park, PA 1.1, it's a little area in here. What you see in the development plans later on, this gets rolled in with this closed road, create a larger natural space in this area. We have the linear park dedication along McDonald Road, so that's a continuation of the linear park and walkway. That's going on in this area. The dark green right here is R3.2. So that's single family. It's got a minimum parcel size of 450 square meters. That's the same zoning designation as in here. We have this tight triangle portion of the existing lot configuration over here, and that's where what's being proposed is 1 lot. There would be 3 homes located on it. Each lot, and then it would be a building strata. So very much like an apartment, you can actually, even on single-family dwellings, you can survey the exterior walls. Each strata unit is the exterior wall of a single-family dwelling, all other land is held in common. That's what's proposed in that area. The development permit would be specific to where we have the 3 units on 1 lot. In terms of the development variance permit, one is, as I mentioned, the low-volume, non-3 road pilot project that we'd like to pursue. The other is just a reflection of we have an existing very irregular lot configuration that we've come to a point in this area. So as we come into this point, we start getting really tight with our road dedication for the cul-de-sac. So there's a reduction seen and proposed in the dedication. The actual pavement would not be reduced from our standard. So we have reviewed that on an engineering basis, and we are comfortable we can get all our services in that reduced road cul-de-sac dedication. The road dedication remains on the straightaway of 20 meters. Also in terms of the pocket park, so we essentially be creating a pocket park in here, more of a natural tree retention area. And we'd be looking at having actual barrier curb along this area to help just provide extra protection of the park and the sidewalk itself will be run along that side. In terms of sidewalks, there would be sidewalk on one side. The sidewalk, anybody going any great distance is going to be either going out here through a walkway that would then connect onto this paved area and into the linear park, or we'll be going out onto Spitfire. So crossing the street would be a natural transfer to the sidewalk on one side. That freed up additional land for the boulevard treatment, the green street that we're proposing. 10% highway frontage, so that would be for this parcel. Provincial regulations state that each parcel to be created, the frontage along the street has to be 10% of the perimeter. It stems back from Quebec, where farmlands were continuously divided, and they divided them along the street, and then you end up with these very narrow lots going all the way down, and you couldn't farm them. So an exemption can be granted by council. In this case, we're not creating, this parcel wouldn't create any reduced potential. In effect, with the building strata, we would provide potential in this area. So it'll still be very useful even granting the variance. Council can grant that variance by council resolution. There's no public notice required on that. OCP implications. So we'll break these down into categories. So one, on the environmental. So it does meet the intent of retention of mature trees in a number of areas. Primary focus of the trees on site is actually in here. It gets into a bit of a catch-22 with proposal. Compatibility with the neighborhood dictates single family. Single family dictates a road system going through. This is the only road system that can service that land, going through a main row of trees. Proposing is by adding this small area of park and then the additional road dedication and boulevard, we're actually able to save, we're looking at 12 significant trees in that area. The applicant is also proposing details additional planting up this area of road dedication. Right? So we actually create something a little bit larger in terms of the park. We're also still working with the applicant in terms of looking at where we have mature trees in the boulevard to be able to maintain them and build them into the boulevard cross sections. And unless I hear other direction from council, what we would also then do is amend our Schedule 1 to include a tree retention covenant for those trees that are being proposed to be retained on these lots outside of the building. Those tree retention covenants, what they augment is they provide snow fencing so that when the builders do go on site, that operator has a pretty good idea that he's not supposed to touch the tree. 2, it doesn't mean that the tree can't come down, but if it does come down, it's replanted with a similar species in the same location. So it's not that onerous, and it does take into account the fact that trees do die and allows for the rejuvenation of those areas. The groundwater recharge. So we have the park dedications. We also have the reduced pavement in terms of allowing for less impervious surfaces. And we have the detention pond in this area that 3/4 of this site feeds into. That also allows for exfiltration of some water. The reduced greenhouse gas emissions proposal includes building-to-building VC bonds on all the single-family units equivalents. In terms of active transportation, we do have an existing bike lane going down McDonald Road. We have a proposed bike route. We have a major bike route. This is correct, going down Tudor, coming into Royal Avenue. So we have good connection there. We have the linkages. Of course, we have the walkway connection to even from cul-de-sac. We can come here and working your way on those areas. The reduced pavement width gives a much better aesthetic. It also reduces vehicle travel speeds by encouraging walking, cycling. And of course, we have the increased green spaces. Land use, increased density close to community services. So we are going for the R3.2, so that's the 450 square meter minimum size, as opposed to the historic 650 that you find in older areas of the town as a secondary suite. Close proximity to services, we have the Long Linear Park coming in here. This detention pond has been beautifully landscaped and it creates a bit of a park-like atmosphere itself in the bowl. We have Lancaster Park that we just had with the child play facilities that have gone into Lancaster Park. We also have, of course, the existing commercial at Quality Foods, the proposal that was just approved for commercial at McDonald and Guthrie on the east corner. With Aspen Elementary coming in here, Condor Park, so good connectivity to large number of amenities and services. That compatibility with the scale, again, he didn't go down and propose the duplexes, the patio homes, stayed with the single-family development, and actually proposed additional restrictions in terms of ensuring that compatibility that I'll get into. We also have the affordable housing contribution, so he's proposing cash in lieu in accordance with town practice. 3 of the single-family dwellings would be adaptable and meet the zoning bylaw adaptable housing standards. And he's also recycling one home. There was one home on the site that was moved. It's actually already been moved. Was in this area and it's been moved. The one city was going to be this lot or one of these lots in this area. So we have some recycling of existing housing stock on property. Neighborhood compatibility. So the primary thing he hasn't taken, he's including extending the linear walkway as shown in the OCP, is the OCP land use designation map, but the residential went for something the same as the residential along historic size, opposed to more intensive uses that are proposed, that are allowed in that designation. And kept this as single family as opposed to single triplets. They're more than a reaction to some odd-shaped model. Also in the zoning on this zone, what's proposed is maximum height of 6.5 meters relative to geodetically. And what happened, the site is falling off. So these houses are up a little bit higher and it continues to slope off. 6.5 is approximately in this area. So you're looking at, from property line measured, 6.5 maximum height, 1 story, allowing for daylight basements in the back there. Try and keep view corridors from the second stories over these properties, make sure they're not overshadowed. We get a development permit. The issue that we identified looking at this site was really the fact that these are single-family end of the backyards. And how do you maintain that privacy feature on the backyards? When you're looking at homes going in this area, their views are going to be to the south and views. They're going to orientate. This would be your backyard front. Perhaps you got a picture window looking to the backyard. Especially this is their common access way. The problem we also get into is single family. Our typical, whenever a development permit comes before council, we get site plans, landscape plans, and we get building elevations. The problem with that is a lot of single family property owners need to have custom homes or a specific home in mind. That limits the market substantially. It also creates an administrative problem for us in terms of people like to do little additions. Them coming forward, going to council, applying, going through a 3-month process isn't really conducive to good relations with the neighborhood. So what we're proposing to do in this case is not have any detail drawn. What we've identified as privacy is the big concern here, and also that this building, so it's one building here, single family, second, third, this is a garage. This would be oriented to the street. So we're proposing some conditions in the development permit. On this unit, the main door facing the street, but then get a separate pathway to the street on this unit. These elevations, these north elevations, limiting the glazing openings, 20% of the building elevation, and the window sizes to a maximum of 0.5 square meters. So you can think of that as 1 meter by half meter. And I think that that plus limiting all lighting to full cutoff lighting, lighting on adjacent properties, will be sufficient to ensure compatibility. Proposed road standard. We know from our older neighborhoods, we look at the area between Stewart Street and Cedar and Balmoral, right? So that's just on the east side of the golf course. Or if we look at Robb Avenue, east of Church, much narrower pavement widths. Some cases, no parking, on-street parking allowances, and yet there are high degree of acceptability or even desirability of those streets from those neighborhoods. When we're looking at those older type streets that standard, the benefits of it, we got increased, we have saved green space, so we get bigger trees, increased amenities, reduced asphalt, reduces vehicle speeds. So your design speeds might not be 50K, your design speeds might be 30K. The amenity, the reduced travel speeds, feel safe, and biking, what goes is to learn how to ride a bike. You get the reduction in impervious surfaces, addressing stormwater runoff and groundwater recharge. And if this is all done right, you get a very highly desirable neighborhood, you get increased property values. The downside, of course, is the ability of these old streets to be traffic. So when comparing the older streets with our new ones, the newer streets, they have a higher traffic capacity. You can move a lot more cars, and you can move them at a faster speed. But as we know from petitions to council, this isn't necessarily consistent with what people's expectations of a residential street are. So this was identified by the planning department as a good opportunity for a pilot project. We have a limited number of properties that are non-through street. We're going to try something different to address those issues. And luckily, King's Revenue is interested in pursuing this idea and did a lot of extra design work back and forth to get to the point that it comes to now. Good example, you want to get an idea of the difference between the old and new. Raw. Okay? So this is Church Street. Church West is the new standard, right? So this is just a little bit west of Church Street. You're looking in. We've got our beautiful 9-meter wide pavement. We've got sidewalk on one side. As you can see, it creates quite a... Cars can move on that side. How it looks is another matter. When you look at it east, the narrow pavement, this is actually even a bus route. So even on this narrow pavement, we've got a bus route. We've got no allowance for on-street parking. We have this organic kind of nature where people put gravel down in the boulevard and put the parking and then in between the trees. So we really tried to design it on what people were doing and then what they liked. So the idea of a made in Comox solution and a solution where they can actually see what we're trying to accomplish. How it shows in plan section really right here. So we're looking at 6 meters, 3-meter travel lanes, so full two-way traffic can move on this. And then we have dedicated parking areas, pull-out bays. This gives us a very expanded boulevard on this section and expanded boulevard on this section of the trees. What this will also hopefully stop, because right now we have our 9-meter wide road sections. We have it. So here, see the faint lines, 9 meters wide. We have the great roads. It'll handle two-way traffic, parking on one side. And of course, even though 2 cars are only parking on the street, they'll both park on either sides of the street, a one-way bottleneck. This way, we have the pull-out phase. It's pretty clear exactly where you can park on the sign. Others with limited amounts of sign, parking. In cross-section, this is what it looks like in cross sections. So you can see where we do have the boulevard on the north side of the street. We have the sidewalk right at 3.7 meters. If you're looking at the boulevard on Rob, you're at about 4 meters. So, and that's a huge boulevard on that south side of Rob. And so we're pretty close to that. And then, of course, when we do have a parking lane, we go 2.5 meters in there. So we're still at over a meter boulevard, even when we get a parking lane on this side. You can see something similar on this side. It's a little misrepresented with the center of the trees. In regards to the hedging, that was questioned, our standard is wherever we can on the hedging, we're wanting to screen a lot. We take a covenant shows along the property line where we want the hedging, 1 meter band where the trees have to go in, and the responsibility is on the property owner to maintain that tree and to replant if it dies. And there's a minimum height that we let it grow to. And there's a rent charge as well. We don't do it with a charge down. It's actually an annual rent charge. And that's worked very good to date, and that will be on the hedges being proposed, with the exception of the one here, where these lots currently exist, and no one's going to give us a hedge coming on their existing lot. So it'll be existing vegetation, and we would maintain that.
All right, thank you for that very thorough report. Councillor Conrad.
Just one question. These lots are going to be connected to the pump station, right?
Correct.
Which is going to reduce the cost of the existing neighborhood?
Yes.
Now, how can we ensure, I mean, we know that the developer can tell the purchaser of these lots that they're connected to a pump station, but how do we get that trickle down to the owners? Because he's going to sell it to a builder, and the builder, you know, we don't have control over him. So how do we make sure that the eventual end user of this house is going to know about the pump station?
What we've done now is, for example, up on Kai Bay Road, we did the last one, is when the lots are created, we do send a letter to each lot owner. And even if they're all held by one developer, we do send that letter advising that there will be a charge on and a service charge. So it's no longer, it's municipal staff that are doing it. And yes, that property can then be sold. But even if you're a developer, if you do 26 lots, you're going to get 26 letters addressed to 26 individual property owners.
And it's on the tax roll as well.
As well. So those are the two changes that we have done.
All right, good. Just so long as it's done.
Councillor Bryce.
Yes, and thank you, and I certainly like the idea of piloting the narrow road, and thank you for working on that. Have we heard back from the Cornwall Strand? I don't, and have they seen this plan? Because the original letter was it 2000?
We have, the letter attached is our response letter. We haven't received anything back from that. So we do know that on the previous development, if you look at Lancaster Heights, the request was for the chain link fence. So in this case, it's the chain link fence plus some buffering. That's what we're currently working on in terms of along the southern border to try to get hedging in addition. And then we feel that our answers in terms of the traffic have been provided in the letter. There's no design to pump additional traffic on back road. We're trying to pump traffic and pump it actually onto Guthrie Avenue itself.
I was thinking more of the buffering, whether a hedge met their expectations. You know, currently, as you know, it's a tree strip, the whole strip is.
Yes, and we didn't want to raise expectations unnecessarily, so in our response, we didn't mention hedge in that. So we haven't received objection to our response. If we do receive any further correspondence, we can of course come to council. So we're hoping that we use that as a sign that the chain link by itself would have been acceptable, and if we get to the hedge, that's one more thing.
And they have had a copy of the plan submitted.
They would have had one of the referral letter, date, yeah.
And I just out of curiosity, too, would know the old
No, that was the gazetted section of Knoll that
really, because it is such a nice trail network in there with the, the Parson Knoll coming out of McDonald Road.
There was a strong desire from the band at that time for no access.
Really, thank you.
Anything further for Claire at this time? Staff are looking for a recommendation, yes, a resolution from council to refer this application to the advisory committee.
I'll move that.
On referral then, all those in favor? Page 35, we have a staff report regarding the Comox Avenue Ellis Street Crosswalk project. Our town engineer, and I know our administrator can speak to it as required. So, any general questions, fire away, otherwise we're looking for a recommendation as printed here to redirect.
I'll move that right.
Resend it, sorry. On the recommendation, discussion.
I just have a quick comment. I know that there's quite a bit of concern in that area, not specifically about the sidewalk, but about the way that Ellis comes to Beaufort. And I don't know if there's any thought of resolving that issue, or is there any resolution? I know citizens have had suggestions of 3 ways.
Talking about the intersection of
The intersection,
Beaufort and
yes.
Ellis.
I just think that when work is happening there, people may have expectations that situation is going to resolve the vehicular turn, which is kind of a difficult turn.
That intersection was redesigned and redeveloped a few years ago to alleviate the concerns that existed before about traffic. So the traffic pattern was changed to allow through traffic from Ellis to continue on to Beaufort. I know there still is an issue, and we have referred to engineers to see what we can do to tweak that to improve it. And the initial response on making it a 3-way stop was not favorable, so we're just looking at other options.
Because it seems we are going to do any tweaking to it. If we are doing work there, that would be the time to do it.
This is just a pedestrian crosswalk.
This is
Pedestrian
up on
crosswalk and
Comox
sidewalk.
Comox.
Yeah.
This is up to the
Oh,
top.
so it's just on Comox Avenue, the sidewalk.
Yes. Okay, anything further on that recommendation, Councilor Fletcher?
Just with that past week, many people thought we were starting the works there.
Well, it was the beginning of the works because we had to relocate a catch basin and a hydrant, I think. So it is part of the works, but it's part of the works that we required to do. So, but we hope to, if council approves the recommendation, we hope to tender as early as February. And as soon as the plant opens, the asphalt plant, we can get on with this project.
Okay. Anything further on the recommendation? All those in favor? Motion is carried. 2 items of correspondence. Page 39 is a letter from Victoria Fire Chief Jeff Lambert.
Second.
And we're thanking, of course, our fire chief and his staff for their tour of the training facility and fire department. So, all those in favor? Oh, sorry. Speaking of that.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, recently we heard that the city of Courtney was contemplating a new fire hall and a training facility, and I think this letter clearly shows that we have a handle on that sort of expertise here in Comox.
My counterpart at the city of Courtney is aware of that. We've had some discussion around it. I don't know what their council is doing with that recommendation that they were discussing about fire hall. It's been sort of put on the back burner finally. So we'll see where that goes. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And a letter from the Proctor appreciation for recent projects.
Move receipt.
Second.
On receipt then, all those in favor? All right, reports from members of council. We'll start with Councilor Don Grant.
I attended a regional district board meeting as well as a meeting of the select committee to just approve the RFP for the distribution of the funds to help the homeless. Pretty much it.
Councilor McKenna.
Yes, I attended and presented awards and told a story at the Comox Library Branch Summer Reading Program as a rep there. I attended a Community Justice Center meeting just reviewing the contract for the CAO there, and attended a YANA board meeting, an organization that I'm sure you all know is close to the hearts of a lot of families in the valley.
Councillor Price?
Yes, I just have a brief report from the Comox Archives and Museum, and just the total visitors for this year until the 26th of August is 5,242, which for the museum is a huge increase. And for the summer period, going from June the 19th, we've seen that over 1,900 people coming in. And the artist patio outside has been very successful, and 39 artists will have worked there between July the 7th and August 31st. And it is coming up to 1 year since the town very graciously allowed the use of the building, or that the building itself opened, the gallery museum, and there will be a reception on Thursday, September the 13th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. to celebrate our communication, with a cake donated from Quality Foods.
Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. Since we last met, I attended Maple Lake announcement at Cumberland Village Square. So I was very excited about that project. What to do there. Opportunity. I also attended the Blue Carbon Luncheon that was hosted by Project Watershed. And I attended the Estuary Boat Tour following the luncheon. But just to recap from the luncheon, from the Climate Action Secretariat, we heard that they felt Project Watershed certainly had some strong science to recognize this concept of blue carbon. More research is needed, but it's felt that there are definitely monies out there that would enable this research. And they certainly left very encouraged and encouraging us, and we will hear further at the DCM on that.
Great, thank you.
And I also attended the CBR board meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Kenny?
And I went to the economic development meeting that we had about a month ago, I guess. I missed a council meeting in between. And there, a couple of things came up. One was some new stats from the visitor center to see how it's going. They've been open at that time for 218 days, and their volume of visitors is up 22% over historic. 64% of those are what's considered to be a true visitor, and that's somebody that comes from outside of the Comox boundaries. So before that, about 54%. So it's actually working that we're getting the kind of people that we were hoping to come, which is the out-of-towners. You can get 45 bookable activities you can do. You can get from there, including BC Ferries, Harbour Air. And we've got 30 local artisans in the shop now selling it. All of this, I've got this, it's in a council circulation binder, and it's actually got the list of who's in there and what they're doing. So that's all good news. That's all working well. The other thing is the hotel tax. I'll try and see if I can make this as uncomplicated as I can. But when you try and get a hotel tax, you need to get 51% of the hotels in any jurisdiction to agree. In Comox, we only have one hotel, and they didn't agree. So Courtenay, however, did get their 51%. So Courtenay is going to be going through the Economic Development Society to Victoria, asking that we be able to put a hotel tax on, which would be approximately $2 a room per night. That money would then go to a destination marketing committee and start doing more destination marketing, as you see other communities do. So what the Economic Development Society is asking, they're not asking for Comox to join in, but we're saying, could you send a letter of support for the Courtenay bid to say that this is a good idea for Courtenay to do. My understanding of the hotel, the Port Augusta Hotel, is that it is up for sale, and so they didn't want to sign on to a hotel tax as they're trying to sell their building. So that could change in the future. The RD, the only hotel in the RD that would be affected by hotel tax was the Kingfisher, and although they actually started all this years ago, decided they didn't want to be part either. So Courtney is actually going to start it, and we'll see how it works. And so they're asking us for a letter of support for the Courtney bid,
Okay.
if I may. And that's it.
So yeah, that material has been forwarded to our CAO and it will appear on the agenda in the near future.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you for your report. I'll just report on a few things. I had a meeting back on August 16th with the People's Republic of China Consul General from Vancouver. She and several of her staff were here visiting the area, Comox and Cumberland, and other points to the north and west. And we exchanged gifts and talked about opportunities for investment in this community, that they may have contacts in the business community in China that might be interested in pursuing here. And I know I have provided them with the contact particulars for our economic development officer. Attended the Power and Glider Wings Parade, which is the Air Cadets, and that is always a proud day for those hardworking cadets who have earned, in some cases, their Power Squadron wings and others the Glider Squadron wings. There were 2 Comox kids that got the Power Squadron and 2 got the Glider, and of course these come from programs all across British Columbia. And the reviewing officer was Rear Admiral Jennifer Bennett, who is the Chief of Reserves, and was somebody that I served with in the reserves a few years ago. So neat to see her again, and she's moving to the top of the reserves in Canada. Wing Commander's Garden Party was held back in August, and as mentioned, the Cumberland Maple Lake Press Conference. And also, as a sure sign that summer was coming to an end, I attended the Fall Fair opening ceremony, and would also note that this Friday is the Mayor's Golf Tournament. It's all 3 mayors that are supporting that, and I do thank Councillors Grant and Price for participating, and the CAO is also going to be participating and donating a few golf balls for the course. So it should be a good time on a Friday afternoon. The weather looks great. So the funds raised for that will be going to, among others, the Lifetime College Foundation, the Rural Legacy Fund, and through the young professionals for some of their causes that they're working on with Habitat. So hopefully they'll be successful in that regard. We have no late items, media questions at this time. And if there's anyone left here.
Come on, he's lovely.
You already had your 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
There you go. And a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move. Second.
All in favor, motion carried. It's all yours, Councilor McKinnon, for the next 2 weeks.
Yes,
What could go wrong there?
Just don't burn it down.